Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project, a copyrighted edition for our video channel. Thanks for being here to a missing person segment. It's going to be a little different this time. You'll see. But first of all, before I start, I keep saying this, and I'll keep hammering that drum. You need to watch the movie. Missing 411, the UFO Connection. I poured my heart and soul into that thing. And there's so much in there to understand that I can't even begin to talk to you about it all in 30 minutes that I have. Trust me that the issue of missing people is much more complex than anyone I know of can understand that's involved in search and rescue. Because they have a very tunnel vision approach to this. You know, a person goes missing, they're found dead, they died, that's it, they're gone, they found it, it's over. Boom, that's it. A lot of people ask me, say, Dave, well, did they check the victim for radioactivity? Did they? No. No. Nobody checks for anything. Here's why. Search and rescue, in most incidents, is done under very difficult circumstances. People are way out in the middle of nowhere. They're hot, they're cold, they're hungry, they're thirsty, they're tired, etc. There's no couch to sit down on. There's no place to rest your mind. You go. And those people are not detectives. Those people are not state investigators. Those people are people just like you and me. Forget about my law enforcement experience. But they're volunteers. And the leaders of the search and rescue oftentimes are law enforcement, are park rangers. And those people got to be very careful how hard you push these individuals because they're all volunteers. How far and how long can you push a volunteer to look for somebody? Yeah, how long? Especially when all these volunteers are supplying their own food and water and places to sleep, blah, blah, blah. You push them too hard, and accidents start to happen to the volunteers themselves. They get tired, they go home, they have to sleep, they have to rest. How much time can they take away from their own work, their own lifestyle? You get it? And then when they come across finding somebody, I hate to tell you this, but it's a tragic event most of the time. People, to find a body, the first time you see a dead body, you will never forget it. And then to see a dead body that doesn't look normal because there's been animal predation or because they fell off a cliff and they broke their arm or their neck and they don't look right, you will not forget this. So there's trauma, mental trauma that goes with this. And oftentimes, the deputy coroner for the county may not even come out to that scene. So they take a lot of pictures, helicopter comes in, they throw the body in a body bag, and away it goes. That's about it. What really happened there? Most people don't even know. Most of the times, there's not even a serious investigation into it. And here we go with why I'm talking to you. In Missing 411, the UFO Connection, there was an absolute epiphany moment in it. And that's when one of the victims of an abduction, yeah, he claimed an alien abduction, he said the way that they released him off the craft is they dumped him from height onto the side of a hill, and he rolled down the hill, injuring his shoulder. This is fact. I heard that. I heard that directly from him at his house. And my brain almost exploded. Because, folks, the number of times I have read search and rescue reports where the victims have fallen to their death is off the charts. It's off the charts. I'm not kidding. And I've stated this before. There's been countless times, way before I started to do missing person work, where I went into the woods by myself, hiked way back into the middle of nowhere. Always armed. Back in the days I was an idiot. I never even heard of a personal locator beacon to carry. And when I went out there, I had my gun, my wits, my food, and most of the time a fishing pole. And I was just there to clear my mind, catch and release some fish, sit around with me and my own thoughts. So do I understand people that go into the woods by themselves? Absolutely. I do. I get it. I've been there so many times. But with my knowledge now, I have great concerns about people going in alone. And the first case I'm going to start with involves a man who disappeared August 17th, 2023. Just a very, very recent case. Lorne Gingras. I'm sorry. Let me start that again. Disappeared August 18th, 2023. His name was Stephen Bloor, B-L-O-O-R. He's 58 years old. Stephen disappeared. He was hiking in the Sierra Nevada mountains in Mono County. He was a graduate of Southern Methodist University. He was 58 years old. He was married and lived in Santa Ana, California. He was a branch manager for Kemper Insurance, and he made a life out of being a claims manager for several different insurance companies. He loved the outdoors, was in great shape, had a very nice house in Santa Ana, did good in life. And he intended to make a very long hike north through the Sierras. Now, this is the poster that was released by the Mono County Sheriff's Office about him. Again, 58 years old, longtime hiker, great shape, smart man, married, smart man. I'm going to reiterate this: smart man. This is a blow-up picture of the one that was in the poster, probably somewhere on one of his long hikes. Now, Stephen started his hike at a place called Diepholz Post Pile. Google it. Look at the pictures. It's an unusual place. It's kind of near Mammoth Lakes, and he intended to hike to Lake Tahoe, about 180 miles away. So, right here is a Diepholz Post Pile. Right here's Mono Lake. Lee Vining. The number of people who have disappeared in this area is off the charts. I'm going to come back to this in a second. I'm going to come back to it in a second. Remember I said Stephen was a smart hiker? He was smart. He was carrying a personal locator beacon, and it was a special one that transmitted his location by text probably every 10 minutes. There's a choice you have on there about how many times. I think the average is once every 10 minutes or every 20 minutes. And his wife was following his progress online at home. It's kind of cool, kind of a cool thing to do, keep track of friends and relatives. But he was smart enough that he knew about this, and he was hiking alone. And Stephen spoke with other hikers while he was on the John Muir Trail, a very, very popular trail up through the Sierras. And he was scheduled to, and he was going to spend the night at a place called Garnet Lake. And it was about a 10-mile hike from the Diepholz Post Pile to Garnet Lake. His last contact with his wife was at 6 o'clock on August 18th. Now his wife's following his tracking. For some reason, it's unclear to everybody at this point, tracking shows he left the trail near Garnet Lake at about a 10,000 foot elevation. And he went up to the side of this mountain in a boulder field above the lake, a big boulder field. Why is that important? Many people have been found in boulder fields, deceased. Granite boulder fields. Well, his wife noticed that he wasn't moving for a long time. And apparently he had a sat phone with him as well, because she tried to call him on it and he wouldn't pick up. And the wife called the Mono County Sheriff's Department and reported him as missing. And there is exactly why you carry a personal locator beacon. Because if Stephen was there, say with a broken leg, he fell and damaged his phone. Time is of the essence in these cases, and I'm not kidding you. You can develop hypothermia, etc. During this time, a big storm coming out of the Baja area was coming up through California. Thunderstorms were coming through the area. The wife gave the GPS coordinates that she last had for her husband to the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office called the California Highway Patrol. Now, why would they do that? California Highway Patrol does highways, Dave. Well, the Highway Patrol in California has a helicopter team, and they have helicopters dispersed all the way down through the state. And these helicopter pilots for the CHP are awesome. And they do search and rescue, and they're awesome. I can't tell you how many times that they participated in searches and found people. It's a great thing to have in the state. Well, they give the CHP the coordinates. Wife last heard from her husband on August 18th at 6 p.m. Then nothing. Well, less than 24 hours later, CHP's in the sky over this spot in the middle of nowhere in the Sierras. That's fast. And they're flying over Iceberg Lake, which is nearby. Because they went over Garnet Lake and didn't see anything. But they go over Iceberg Lake, son of a gun, there's a body laying in this steep boulder field. The wind was blowing so bad because this storm was coming up through the state from the south that they had to put off the recovery of the body until August 20th. The Mono County Sheriff's said that he died from a fall. Okay, I get that. But what was his cause of death? They didn't say. I actually wrote an email to the undersheriff and he didn't respond. At least he didn't respond by the time I got this. And in the notes for the video, if I do hear from him, I'll include that. Let me tell you something. There was a case out of British Columbia, Canada. It's in the Canada book, where a bunch of guys are hiking down this trail in southern British Columbia. One of the guys takes off on a run and he goes, "Hey, I'll see you guys at our spot up ahead." He takes off. He disappears. They report him missing. A couple days later, they find him in a boulder field, way, way away from where they were going to meet him. Nobody could figure out how he got there or why he was there. And they said he died from a fall. Now, one huge problem, that when you look at the boulder field, it's in a very, very mild decline. It's not steep. Hundreds of people commented on that video and said, "How did he die?" They said he died from a fall. Now, with the knowledge of this, maybe it's a little more clear what happened. I don't know. But he didn't die from falling down a steep boulder field because the hill wasn't steep. Now in this case, I don't have the opportunity to look at the boulder field where they found Stephen, so I can't comment. But why would he go off trail into a steep boulder field to begin with? He's not going to sleep there. He's not going to camp there. That makes no sense to me. The trail to that lake went down to the lake where there were campsites, where everyone else would camp. There were tons of boulders, tons of granite, tons of water in this area. In an area of many disappearances. Stephen was smart. He was carrying a personal locator transmitter and apparently a sat phone. Now, why did he divert from Garnet to Iceberg Lake? I have no idea. But he did. Now, it's about a 46-minute hike from Garnet to Iceberg. He came from down here, hiked up here, then diverted down there. He's going that direction towards Lake Tahoe. So he actually made his trip a lot longer by going south. I have no idea. This makes no sense to me. This area is very rugged, high elevation. I will say this, and I've said it 100 times. When I was alone, I didn't have a personal locator beacon. I didn't have a sat phone. I was very careful. I didn't take any risks. There's no way I would have went up into that boulder field. There's no way. Because I knew if I went off trail, I was in deep doo-doo if I broke my leg. How many of you know I already broke my leg with Angie in Australia filming a segment in a national park in Australia? It's like the gods had me break my leg so I could tell you factually that it can happen. I don't know. But I find the story of Stephen very strange. Now, on top of all this, another man disappeared. John Diepholz, 64 years old, went missing August 16th this year in the Wind River Range of Wyoming. Well, that was just 2 days before Stephen disappeared. Now, John, this is a Sublette County Sheriff's Office poster about him disappearing. John was a teacher in Minneapolis. He started his hike August 5th. He was due out of the mountains on August 16th. Now, he didn't come out, and the family contacted Sublette County Sheriffs. They went out and they interviewed tons of hikers on the trail. Nobody seemed to know for sure where John was going, but they kept at it. This is a more current picture of John. Smart man, degreed, committed to teaching our youth. Married, lived in Minneapolis. He was on an 11-day trek. That was the plan. And where was he? So, this is Pinedale, Wyoming. I've been there. This is the Wind River Range. And let me tell you, this is rough. Very rough. You see all the blue specks in here? That's lakes, water. This is a spot where he went. See all this? I've stated before, and I'll say it again. On maps that have this much water are the locations that most people disappear. They think, well, Dave, do they end up in the water? No, they don't. But water harbors something. Let me get to this. Sublette County Sheriff's Department calls for helicopter search, and they find John's body above Spider Lake. Above Spider Lake. They find Stephen's body above Iceberg Lake. Two people, both dead from an apparent fall. And that's what they said of John. Died from a fall. Days apart from each other. Granted, several states apart. I don't care about that. Both very healthy, both very active, both very smart, older, mature men. What in the heck is going on? Well, friends, I'm not an idiot. And I'm also not the sharpest knife in the drawer. But if you start putting the clues together that I give you on this show, you should be starting to put this together. Because I think it's pretty apparent what's happening. Go back. I've had people tell me they've watched that movie 6, 7, 8 times because it's filled with so much content. Go back and watch it. And then apply what you learn to these disappearances I just told you about of these two men. Okay? I'm very sad by these things. The one thing I wish I did have was the coroner's cause of death on both cases, which they never did release, and how long they had been dead when they found the bodies. I'd really like to know that. And the injuries to the body. But again, they didn't release that. All right. Now, put those two cases in kind of your bucket list. And we're going to go to another case. This one involves Lorne Gingras, 2 years old, missing August 17th, 1961 at 9:30 a.m. And this happened at 120 McLaren Street in Ottawa, Canada. Almost in downtown Ottawa. Even at the time, it was a pretty much downtown area. Lorne was the only child of Mr. and Mrs. Frank Gingras, who had been married 18 years. And they considered Lorne a miracle baby because of the age of both parents. They doted over Lorne. They kept him close. They kept him safe. They loved that little guy so much. This is the picture I found of Lorne. And you know what? This is one of the few times I looked at a baby's photo. And something about it just struck me odd. I can't tell you what. But Mr. and Mrs. Frank Gingras took Lorne on August 16th, 1961, to the grandmother's house in Ottawa. I'm sorry, in Ottawa. And the grandmother also had Mrs. Gingras' sister staying with her to help her. They left Lorne on August 16th and they went on a short vacation. The morning on August 17th, the two women that were watching Lorne put him on the front veranda of the house of 120 McLaren Street in Ottawa. That was a single family house back then. And they were given a restrainer, you know, that goes over the baby's shoulders and etc. It's almost like a leash, but it was supplied by the mom. They called it a harness. And they tied the harness to a device inside the veranda so he couldn't get out. And then they put a huge piece of plywood over the front steps so he couldn't get out either. And the access to the street was blocked by a large piece of plywood. Well, both women left. They came back about 15 minutes later at 9:30 in the morning, and Lorne was gone. The rope attached to the harness appeared to be broken, in their words. The women immediately ran to the street, looked up and down the street, saw nothing, called Ottawa police. This is the Ottawa River, and that's a demeanor line between Quebec and Ontario. The home was right here. And then it was 200 yards to this river right here, which was the only obstacle that anyone really worried about. But the home was right here. Now, when you look at that address today, it's a bunch of super high buildings, but it doesn't look like it did at the time of the disappearance. So police responded quickly. And they knew right away something was really wrong. And so they committed a lot of officers. And in 1961, police were pretty advanced. Not as much as today, but fairly advanced on searching. And they reacted. They started to canvass the neighborhood. They put a boat in the Lievre River, 200 yards east of the home. They immediately put a boat in the river. And they started to look, and they started to knock on doors, trying to find anyone who saw anything about little Lorne walking down the street. By the afternoon, the police chief called Lorne's parents and said, "You need to get here now." Wouldn't say why. Within like 7 or 8 hours, the parents arrived back. And then it was on August 17th, the following day. I'm sorry, that same day, late in the day, they put their first divers in the water on the river. And they started 2 miles downstream. And then by the following day, they had 19 divers in the water that stayed in the river 5 days. They actually had the river reduced in flow by a power station that was upstream so they could search everything. From August 17th to September 2nd, the police kept going further and further out from the grandmother's home, scouring for witnesses. They stopped and talked to mailmen, delivery people, firemen, taxi drivers, everything you could imagine. Nobody saw the boy walking on the street. Nobody saw anyone come to the front of the house. No witnesses, no confirmed sighting. When Mr. and Mrs. Gingras arrived at the home, they were stunned by what they were told. On August 25th, the police made a request from the OPP requesting a formal national investigation of the case. The town alderman made a press statement that we doubt the child is in that river. August 26th, Mrs. Gingras stated, "Lorne disappeared in thin air. I don't see how that boy could have gotten over the plywood." Police didn't give up. They kept searching. Water levels in the river went down. They searched everywhere. They didn't believe he was in the river. One of the issues was that 200 yards to the river had people in their front yards, cars driving up and down the street, potential for tons of witnesses. The area in the veranda he was in, if you were walking on the sidewalk, the chances were you wouldn't even see Lorne because of his height, because of the coverage of the front of the house. Some people believed that he was probably abducted. His parents had to glom onto that thought because the alternative is death in the river. There was a lot of press on this case for weeks, and then nothing. A lot of times there's an article maybe 2 or 3 years later that goes back and covers it. There was nothing. It was almost as though there was just a complete clam up of everything. On September 11th, the search and rescue for Albert was over. The police chief said. He said he didn't know where else they could look. They had covered areas 3, 4, 5 times. And then the last line from the police chief. This is a real mystery. Well, there's a lot of things about that case that remind me of disappearances in urban settings. I would have liked to have seen how the rope was broken at that point, or did the knot come untied? They said broken. I'd also like to see the plywood and see how it was sitting and how high it was. But if the mom says that she didn't understand how he got over it, I tend to believe and side with the mom. A very sad case, and one that will remain unsolved forever. In the meantime, I appreciate you being here. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. Please share this on social media. I greatly appreciate all your comments and thoughts, and I will continue to try to do a good job for you. In the meantime, when you're out in the community, remember, everyone's battling their own demons. You run across someone who's having a bad day, just remember that. Try to be polite, be friendly to people. It doesn't cost anything to be nice. Be safe, be kind to your family, polite us out.